Hello and welcome to Lecture 4 on Personality. So now we're going to look at different theories of personality. And there are multiple theories of personality. Now as we look at these theories, we're going to look at the psychologists who developed these theories. And something we're going to find is that each of them have very different theoretical orientations, and that their theories come from those theoretical orientations. I think you'll enjoy this part, this section. So first we're going to start with Freud. Now Freud isn't the father of psychology, he is the father of talk therapy. So he was really the first psychologist to come up with a solid theory of personality. Now Freud's theory of personality is going to seem a little odd. And we'll do our best as we grapple with this. Freud was a brilliant neurologist. He was an MD. He wasn't a psychologist. And he was, treating a lot of middle-class Austrians. And something he was finding is that for many of his patients, they were coming in with neurological symptoms that there was no organic cause for, that he couldn't find the organic cause for. And as he observed his patients over time, he started to put this idea together that maybe this is psychogenic. Maybe these symptoms are caused by psychological disorder rather than physical disorder. Now, we know that there's something to this, and it's still something that we explore and research today. Now, Freud's main theory is psychodynamic theory, and this is the theory that the unconscious forces determine our behavior. And I want to look at that. First, I want you to go to Moodle and the folder titled Chapter 13 Personality Lecture Videos. You will find the Young Dr. Freud two-part series, Struggling with the Demon and Opening the Eyes. Each of these is about an hour long, but you're not going to watch all 2 hours. I'm going to timestamp it for you. So I do want you to watch the timestamped portions of the videos. So go ahead and watch that now. Welcome back. So, I had you watch that because I want you to grasp an understanding of who Freud is. I think Freud gets a very bad rap, and I don't think he deserves it. Freud is a complicated man. And I am the first to admit there are going to be some parts of this theory that you're just going to be like, oh my God, what the hell is this? And I'm still that way myself sometimes. But something I really appreciate about Freud is he was very dedicated to working with women who were really, really struggling with their mental health. And so in the videos, they introduce you to the diagnosis of hysteria. Women were coming into his practice with neurological symptoms, so migraines, chronic headaches, some weren't eating, some were having fainting spells, some were having seizure-like episodes, muscle spasms, a lot of body-wide physical pain, anxiety, depression, and it would get so bad for some of these women that they were institutionalized. This was a time where male members of the family could drive one of the women in their family to the institution and just say, she's out of control, something's wrong, she needs help. and she's not safe. We can't take her home. And they just took your word for it. And women would be diagnosed with hysteria. It was kind of this broad diagnosis that they used for just about anything that women had that wasn't a cold or flu. And once you were diagnosed with hysteria, your outlook was very bleak because there wasn't really a treatment for it. It was more just kind of trying to control the symptoms, and sometimes trying to control you depending on how your symptoms manifest. I'll post an article on Moodle about hysteria and the history of hysteria, which is optional for you, but it'll be there. Freud started working with women who'd been diagnosed with hysteria, and he started doing talk therapy. And here's what's brilliant. It works. It worked then, and it works now. The way we do talk therapy is not how Freud did talk therapy. But the research does show that just talking about things is enough to help. People feel better when they talk through things. Now, Freud was an Austrian Jew during the Victorian era. And it was a time of growing anti-Semitism. Freud was also a bit of a narcissist. He had a strong drive to be highly respected and recognized as a physician. He had some really fascinating ideas. Now, Freud came up with the understanding, as he was doing talk therapy, a lot of women were revealing histories of sexual abuse in their younger years. And Freud started to link child sexual abuse with hysteria, with all of these neurological symptoms and this psychiatric diagnosis at the time of hysteria. So he was working with Bauer. I forget Bauer's first name. Freud and Bauer were doing great work on hysteria. But Freud came to Bauer and said, this is what I'm seeing. I had this instance with a young patient while I was on vacation, and as I've been working with my patients, I'm starting to think that hysteria is linked to child sexual abuse. That was too much for Bauer. Now, the Victorian era was an incredibly sexually repressed period. Incredibly sexually repressed. And some of that is one of the issues for women's mental health at the time, was how repressive society was when it came to sex and gender at the time. Freud had this deep desire to be well respected. He, keeps working with his clients, with his patients, and he writes up a paper and he presents it at a major medical convention. He is rejected. The idea that women are suffering because of child sexual abuse was too much for the medical community at that time. And Freud really struggled. Being rejected was a big blow to Freud. Now, something to know about Freud is that he struggled with his own demons. He struggled a lot with depression. He struggled a lot with migraines. And if any of you have had migraines, they can be pretty overwhelming. It's hard not to be depressed when you have frequent migraines. Freud kind of had a crisis where he had to figure out, how do I bridge this gap of okay, this is what I'm seeing with my female patients. I really do believe that it's child sexual abuse that is behind many of these cases of hysteria. And yet, the entire medical community has just rejected him. And as I said, he's a bit of a narcissist. That was a big blow to him. So, I wanted to give you that background because I think as we talk about this, as we talk about the rest of Freud's theory, it will kind of give some context into why Freud got where he went. And we'll keep going on that. So let me see. So we'll end right here, and we'll start talking about his actual theory of personality in our next video. Thank you.